about community, I think this relates to the community. We know that in education we have, when we talk about classroom, because there's the title here says classrooms. So because we have so many classrooms due to globalization and advancement in technology, the idea of classroom shifts from the traditional classroom. So emphasis should be focused on getting some regulation or some restructuring, some talking to people like Mark Zuckerberg, people like Amazon, those people that invent all these things that our children have adopted more than what they want to hear from us. Lifelong learning, that's a problem, to some extent. What is lifelong learning? It's like we have different meanings. Is it continuous education? Or is lifelong learning the right direction or in the wrong direction? How do we make sure that we teach the children what they should know, what they need to know, and maybe develop? We're not controlling them, we're not micromanaging them, but we are trying to set them up to continue their lives, all right? So all this need to be regulated. I am not really speaking ordinarily, but I think I have a strong conviction that maybe through my research and publication and presentations at conferences, some of these things, I will continue to pursue them from both legal perspective and from social perspective. And we will be getting more civil societies, more non-profit, non-governmental actors involved through our other activities. And in fact, I want to urge every member, every person present here today to consider some of these concepts. But again, finally, measurement, evaluation. We must have, in all these discussions, how do we know that efforts we are making are paying good dividends? We must think about how do we evaluate, how do we obtain the data, even if it's not gender disaggregated data, any type of data that can show us that efforts at this level translates to the society and change. Thank you so much.
Before I forget, I was informed tomorrow's sessions is going to be moved to a different building. So it's at 3, if you could please, 325 East 33rd Street. Okay, so it's going to be at a different venue. And then if you purchase tickets for dinner, you should have the ticket. It's not at the Hilton, but it's going to be at 4 West 43rd Street. And that's only for ticketed guests. But I just want to repeat, it's 325 East 33rd Street. They told me it's one block away.
Let me just add to it.
Okay.
It is between 1st and 2nd Avenue.
Oh, okay.
Because here we talk about the cross streets, 1st and 2nd.
Before we forget, yes.
Between 1 and 2 avenues.
Okay. It's 325 East 33rd Street.
Between 1st and 2nd Avenue.
Between 1st and 2nd Avenue. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please give another round of applause to the doctor. As you see that, this is well known about the curse of Africa, because we all know that in terms of resources, in terms of wealth, no other continent is as wealthy as the motherland, what we call the motherland, the African continent. We have a country like people called DRC. It used to be called Zaire. I'm saying that just so that you don't confuse us with the two Congo, which is one of the wealthiest God-given country. Can talk about natural resources. There's no other country that has received so much wealth within it, and we know that it's one of the poorest countries in the world right now. All the statistics are there, no roads and things like that. So the professor talked about that because, again, what is wealth? And personally, I used to introduce myself by saying I'm from a very humble family. And usually students ask me, what do you mean humble? I say humble because I don't like the term poor, because once someone tells you poor and you accept that, you are limiting your horizon. And that's something that I think Professor Ifam is really talking about. We also have, of course, you talk about regulations. we have regulation, we have, it is very, very important as we live in the world that have some regulation. Sometimes we agree on some of the things that are being decided. We all, many of the African countries kind of have difficulty understanding why some of the dictatorships are really cherished. You have a country like Saudi Arabia with all the things happening there, all the heritage are cherished, and some of the dictators, are pushed upon. So we need to have some ways of measuring, some of these things that the international community is pushing on us. Mm-hmm. So the traditional classroom. So in the past, we used to go in the classroom. You remember how we used to have this blackboard, we used to write on it. Today we have, all these laptops, computer, all these devices. And again, sometimes it's not the teacher who actually knows it all, but the best teachers today are those who actually are honest enough to tell the student, I don't know, let's find the answer together. So we are really living in a very difficult time. And again, talking about wealth, again, you have Nigeria, one of the wealthiest countries thanks to the oil that they receive. What have they done with that oil for the last, 70 years? That's a question that needs to be answered. Mm-hmm. Where a senator over there is earning more than the U.S. senator. So, some of the realities. And so we're talking about education. We need to have some result by 2030. And these are, how we're going to get there if we don't change some of the way we are evaluating, we are doing business. So that's some of the few things that you get the concept that the professor brought there, so that we can actually look at as we move forward to the next phase, in the hope that all of us here are taking the message home, and we know that one person can make a difference, right? So we are all here. You could have been somewhere, especially some of those who are coming all the way from Africa. So we are here to planning in one of the things happening out of here. Hopefully, we'll be plotting, on how we're going to make things different. We have 2030 is a target, and human beings, we like to have some targets. Sometimes we are pushed to when we have time again, we wait for the last second, last minute, but I think the time is very critical. And if we don't do it, the younger generation is not going to forgive us. Okay? So thank you very much. I don't know if there's time for a question or not. So.
Yeah, we can have 2 questions, but any comments or questions?
Yeah, question, comment.
I just want to comment on the Bangladesh.
Yes.
I felt like the opening up to the challenges, for everyone to solve the problem is really a good way to bring everyone together. And I think the panel has done a great job. Turkey, Nigeria, and China really help us understand the situation. So when we go home, we could think about like, oh my goodness, how would I be able to solve the problem? Asking questions, lifelong learning. But like if anyone here in the middle of night, you cannot sleep, and you come up with a solution, please.
Feel free to.
Really, email them, and that is the purpose of this conference, because we've been, fighting, with the poverty or, MDGs, SDGs, so.
Yeah, I would like to add on this because the most interesting part of Bangladesh is like overall South Asia, the developing rate in Bangladesh is really high comparing to the other countries. And the current government is really very interested of, doing things according to the SDG. So we have established SDG tracker, and Dr. Su, you probably know about the activity of Bangladesh government. We have a separate entity like access to information. So they are kind of digitizing whole Bangladeshi information portals, servers, to make sure like everyone have access to the information. And also we have established SDG tracker, which is based in the Prime Minister's office. So she's kind of taking care of that. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions or if you have any comments. And also like regarding the partnerships, I would like to say like we are very open to partnerships. So Bangladesh is a very good platform to have some good works in there, and it's learning both ways.
Okay. Any other question, a comment from the guy? I think we kind of running hard. So I will conclude by, I know you all know this quote, sometimes we are preaching to the choir, you know. Margaret Mead, you know, we all know it's a famous quote that says that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So we are here as committed people. It's all about us building network. It's all about working together to make sure that, you know, we do what we can to make sure we have a brighter tomorrow for our children, because that indeed is going to be the best for our humanity. Yes. Yes. Okay,
thank you so much. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me as well. It was a very fruitful conference, and I learned from the panel as well. I think one of the things that I would like to highlight is that most educators, they say that politics should be away from education. Okay? We have to put students in the center of education. When policymakers, they put their political aspirations, political agenda in the middle, but not the students, then things get complicated. And also I would like to just underline and, you know, like bring about what Kofi Annan, the former Secretary General, said. There is no development without peace and security, and there is no peace and security without development. All the goals, the 17 goals of the SDGs are very interdependent and interconnected. We cannot separate one from the other. So that's why when we talk about quality education, we cannot separate it from good governance. In most of the countries, unfortunately, in the developing countries, unfortunately, the political system is in a different way, that politicians, they want to make a lot of reforms in education that really kills educational practices. I mean, from Turkey, I did not really want to talk much about it. But unfortunately, I cannot really tell much good things about Turkey. After 2016, I don't know if you heard about the coup, the failed coup. Think about it. The government shut down 15 universities. Now you will ask a question, what does the universities have to do with the coup? The government imprisoned 44,000 high school teachers. What does the primary school teacher have to do with the coup? More than 6,000 academicians have been dismissed. Academicians, nothing to do with the coup. And so why this is happening? Because it's because of the political agenda. So when politics is involved in education, then the brain drain happens. So when you look at the academic, I mean the statistics, you have most of the educators, like people who are the future of the country, are fleeing from Turkey, unfortunately. So that's why I want to talk more about global education rather than Turkey.
Thank you. Okay, let's
Stand them together, one picture before we
okay.
end the session.
So we need to stand. Okay, we can stand up. And again, thank you all.
Stay closer,
Come close.
please.
Thank you all. We look forward to working closely with you. Where's Dr. Ada? Okay.
Smile. Where's Ada?
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all the speakers and the chair. Next, the speaker would be Ms. Jennifer Russell and Dr. Shirley Elliott, right? And I think two of you guys would be doing the presentation together, or on the stage.
We're going to get cut off at some point.
Well, you build up something, but it's like a wave of politics.
to the computer.
The
No, no, that's mine. I have a Mac, and I don't have the connector.
there's no.
I have the connector.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, boy.
Oh, you say you had to see.
I have a Mac. Do you want to, is yours,
Mine is a Mac.
mine's a Mac, so we can use this?
Oh,
Yeah.
you can
You
use
have to connect.
They don't have it. Thank you so much.
Do you want me to bring my computer?
And I don't know what happened to my stick.
I have that here.
The orange one?
Yeah, today. Good evening, everyone. I'm just going to see if there's Wi-Fi here. Looking for our IT person left. Not yet. Does anyone know if there's a Wi-Fi connection here? Or what the one
You can connect to my hotspot. If you have a hotspot,
Oh, thank you, but I think they have one here. Do we know? Which one the Wi-Fi is? Is there computer helpers? No computer helpers. Oh, that's the one, it's just us. Do we know if there's a Wi-Fi in the room?
There's a Wi-Fi, we just need to,
Do it offline. I can't present.
So do you need Wi-Fi?
I got it. And now I will. All right, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm going to just pull up this presentation, and then we'll get started. Lovely.
I'm going to stand next to you even though I have nothing to say.
So, my name is Jennifer Russell. I'm coming from a global education nonprofit perspective today to talk about SDG-4 and quality education. So I'm going to be half the time, then I'm joined.
My name is Elizabeth Schumann. I'm also going to present a little bit about education and what my organization does to bring the UN into the classroom. We have never met before, so this is a rehearsal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So bear with us.
Well, you do have a good chemistry, so that's good.
Yes. I've just been. Is it on? It's not.
No, turn it up, so you have to turn it up.
You're all set. Okay, again, thank you. My name is Elizabeth Schumann. I am going to tell you a little bit about my group called Korean Teaching About the United Nations.
Yeah.
And we try to bring the UN and what the UN does into classrooms. And I'm very pleased to be here with Jennifer because I know the wonderful work they're doing, which is to connect classrooms all over the world. And I think the future here, we're only going to get the SDGs achieved as if we all work together. And if other people know what people on the far end of the spectrum are doing.
Great, thank you. Since I have the microphone, I won't use my teacher voice. Before we get started, I'm just curious to see from the room, how many of you here were able to study abroad as part of your education?
For those who are not coming from abroad.
Well, for when you were in school, you were able to go to another country.
I've been at that.
Yes.
Even Africans.
Yes, everyone. Yep, okay. There's quite a few in this room because it's a global, I think a global group.
Yes.
Did anyone in school have like a pen pal from another country? Oh, that's really exciting. Okay, so some of what I'm going to share about will kind of connect with some of those experiences. So again, my name's Jennifer Russell. I'm the Director of Education for an organization called IRON, and I'm going to share about this idea of virtual exchange, which is pretty much a fancy way of saying connecting the classrooms around the world, using technology to learn with one another. But I'm going to share about how this is important for quality education, and as we're preparing students for our future world with 21st century skills, be prepared global citizens. Okay, who has heard of IRON before? I see one back here. Yes. Yay, great. Okay, it's the International Education and Resource Network. And we've been using technology for 30 years to connect classes around the world. But actually, we started 30 years ago, before the start of the internet. So technology was quite different then, with classes in the Soviet Union and in New York. So this was in the height of the Cold War, when the two nations really had a lot of misunderstanding, and there was also, the previous fear of nuclear war, a lot of misunderstanding between nations. And the idea was that if you get students, youth connecting with one another and talking and learning together, that would break down those walls and create understanding. And then, if students in the U.S. say, hey, I know people in the then Soviet Union, that they're more likely to think of them peacefully and work in their communities to break down those misunderstandings. So I work with a U.S. office here, but I'm part of a network of nonprofits around the world in about 140 countries. This is just a picture of a couple. And these are education leaders in Japan, and Belarus, and India, and Egypt that are all also working with teachers in their countries to get them to use technology to do projects and connect their classes. So I'm going to share a little bit about what this looks like, how it helps us achieve the SDGs, and also engage youth in working towards achieving the SDGs. And then talk a little bit about teacher professional development and empowerment, as we know it's so important. So we do 3 things regarding education. We do the collaborations, connecting classes through technology. And I know we've talked a little bit about access to technology here. Imagine we did this 30 years ago and what we used. And even today in many of the classes that are connecting, it's a teacher that has access to a computer once a week that is getting online to connect. So we make use of whatever we have to connect classes. We're also a great community of teachers around the world that are passionate about making a difference in the lives of the students, and are also passionate about learning from other teachers about what they do in their country and how they can solve challenges together. And they share their resources and their activities and their curriculum. And then we also do workshops and online courses. So that's a bit about the work. But I want to talk about the projects that we do, and actually I'm going to go quickly. So this is something that uses technology to connect students from kindergarten all the way through high school to work on different subjects together, from math projects, science projects, history projects. But all of the projects, they have to answer this question: how will this project improve the quality of life on the planet? So that way, if you have students in New York connecting with students in South Africa and students in Japan, they're working on their project together, but with this goal of making the world a better place. And I'm going to give you some examples of what this looks like. We have this project called Finding Solutions to Hunger, Poverty, and Inequality. And so what happens in the project is all of the classes around the world that sign up for it, they do a series of activities. They'll research what hunger looks like in their communities. They'll keep their own nutrition calorie trackers, and we'll generally just examine what hunger looks like. There's a lot of sharing and learning that goes on here. It's not one country telling another country how to fix the problem. It's each other looking at what the problem is and sharing their ideas for how we can solve it together. In this one, it's project-based learning. They build up to do some sort of service activity or final project. So one of the activities that they do is they do a hunger banquet to educate others, perhaps younger students, about issues of hunger. And then they share a lot of photography and documentation of the work. So for this project last year, we had 400 teachers and about 10,000 students from 37 countries connecting in small project groups and addressing this issue of hunger and working together. While they were doing this, also building friendships and getting to know people from other countries and learning from their peers about how they would solve challenges together. Another quick example is there's the Water is Life project. And these kids actually got to present this 2 years ago at the UN. They were very excited. But this is a project where schools around the world were focusing on the SDGs related to life below water and water issues. So they had to identify one issue and develop an action plan for how they were going to make a difference in their local community. But again, there's connecting the local, what's happening in your community, but being encouraged and motivated by sharing with your peers around the world. So in this project, we had students in Iran who were using banana peels to filter water. In Uganda, they were doing a waterboard project. Australia, they were doing solar distillation. Taiwan, they did a beach cleanup. The idea is all these different classes, as they were developing their project, they were giving each other feedback on their project plans and encouraging each other, and then coming up with a picture of what their change looked like when they did it all together as a whole. And so last year, this one had 22 schools from 10 countries and about 1,000 students collaborating to solve water issues. So addressing the SDGs in their education and making a difference. So why am I talking about this for quality education? So the picture of this and the vision of when you get youth connecting and collaborating and connecting with youth from other countries online is you're really helping them to build skills, preparing them for the future. As all of our problems are global problems now. So connecting and getting youth to develop those skills to communicate online and to use technology. I spoke to this part briefly on the changing attitudes, and we were talking about inclusion in education before too, and you need to bring diversity into the classroom and have your students understand who the other may be. So when you're connecting and learning about and learning with others from around the world, it helps to increase empathy and understanding and decrease that feeling of otherness by having an intercultural exchange. And also, so many of you in this room, raise your hand, you're able to study abroad. Of course, that's a very low percentage of people, right, in the world that are able to do this. But by using technology, no matter what it may be, even if it's just that one computer you have access to once a week, you open up who can have access to an exchange, who can make a friend in another country. You give the opportunity to students who might not be able to move because of a physical disability, to students who maybe are slower and are afraid to speak, but they can put their thoughts down in writing or art or photos. And you can also engage younger learners and getting kids early thinking about their connections with their community and the world. And I've seen in project work that youth love to be leaders and take action and be the ones making a difference in their community And when you're connecting them with other youth who are doing the same, that motivation, it grows, and they encourage one another. And then kids get to become the change makers in taking action and making a difference. So through project-based learning and through connecting, that becomes a possibility. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was just this idea of how we can help connect teachers with resources and communities. So IRN is really just a big professional learning community. We got teachers from 140 countries. The cool thing is that everything they do is designed and facilitated by the teachers. And so right now we actually have about 120 project facilitators from 40 countries. That means there's not some textbook company in the United States writing a curriculum and exporting it all over the world. That means Chole from Uganda is the one that's designing the activities for the Envision My Ideal World project along with his students, and then getting others to collaborate. So the content is created around the world, and it's pretty cool. And it empowers teachers and students to kind of take their ideas for what they'd like to see in education and to find a community to connect those with. And so I have some resources on the back. I encourage you to take them if you're looking for global resources. We've got teachers' guides to global collaborations. We kind of house all of these lesson plans that teachers around the world make for how they're integrating projects and the SDGs in the class. So they're available for others to see and use. It's open resource. My organization, IRN, also does a lot of field building. So other organizations that also do global education work, we compile all our resources together to help make it easier and available to all teachers. So there's a teacher's guide for global collaboration, and I have little postcards in the back. It shares all about different global opportunities and other events. Let's see here. And I'm going to wrap up and pass on quickly with just some of the professional development. Of course, doing project-based learning in the classroom, using technology in the classroom, these all have very steep learning curves. So professional development is important, helping give workshops and courses for educators, but also helping teachers feel part of a community that they can share and connect with is key. And we do these things. Every year we have an annual conference and youth summit. I think it's a unique event that has both teachers and students. This year we're hosting it in Winchester, Virginia. So if you know teachers or youth leaders or global education organizations that are interested, you can find the information here. Right now we have like 400 educators and youth attending from maybe 30 countries, and registration's continuing. So
what exact date? You say?
July 8th to the 14th.
July 8th.
Yes. So if you're going to be in Virginia, if you're in DC, if you're in New York, you want to stop by for a day, I encourage you to join us and see what it looks like when you get a passionate group of teachers and students together who have ideas for how they want to work together, take on projects to change the world. So just a welcome to that. I had some discussion questions, and I'll leave them up as I'm helping set up the PowerPoint for the next one. Has anyone in this group heard of something similar before? A global project like this, connecting students? Do you have an experience of hearing of similar work? Yeah.
Hi. I have a pen pal program that we do.
Oh, excellent.
And it's directly to the school. So I started it in 2006. And what we did is we go to the principal of the school and we collect a list of names of the kids. And then we come here to the high school if we match age group to age group. And then we go to the school here and we submit that list. And we ask the school to recruit kids. So what they do is they then try to match up the list according to the age group, and then they communicate via the school. So the school has control over the communication. They can overview it, they can review it and see with the communication. And we happened to, through that, we were able to, because it was a cultural experiment, so that children in these countries, mostly third world, because I'm from the Caribbean, I'm from Guyana, and my organization is Miss CARICOM.
Okay.
So we deal in cultural diversity. We try to do cultural blending with the different cultures. So we find that a lot of the children that have these pen pals were 3 of the children got sponsored to come out here.
Wow.
And they're adults now. And a lot of the children got care packages and different things developed from just this exercise. So you find that it was not only because children don't write letters that much anymore. Everything is social media. So this was something to encourage them to actually write. But it turned out to be so much more that I didn't see at the beginning. And so it's a positive thing.
And there's an example of students developing skills, practicing their writing skills, and getting excited about it because they're sharing.
And exchanging information about other educational things like science and cultural events and different things, and then questions were asked, and they learn more about a certain thing. So it's a continual learning process that was so exciting, and it started out just as connecting to children of the same age group from different parts of the world.
I love it. I see a couple other real quick examples, and then we'll pass. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, actually, I just looked up your website. I learned that you've been existing for 28 years. I think that
30.
30.
Wow.
30. We're celebrating 30 years.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's our birthday.
Maybe another example, just like in 1998, I came over to US to Volunteers for Peace Corps. I think they do great work to empower young people to travel abroad and study.
Great. Beautiful. Okay.
I am Virendra from India. I am representing a Global Network for Sustainable Development. Same like you, we are covering goal number 4, 16 and 17. And we are establishing Peace Club for Sustainability and Sustainability Club for Peace in different parts of India and Nepal, although it is USA-based organization. And during this club, we are working on all these issues. We have divided into 4 seasons. Season for peace, non-violence, season for earth, season for human services, and season for interfaith, interculture. And students from each club, and we have some clubs in Arizona also. So they exchange ideas and doing similar kind of things, but you have a much more experience than us. We have just started.
That's beautiful, and that's actually a good plug I'll end with. If you are doing similar work or interested in helping foster that work in your communities, we have great open shared resources, and we collect resources from other people doing the work in the field. I had brought a couple back at that corner table. I'll put some up here as well as my card. I'm happy to help share resources that will help you grow those programs in different contexts and connect you with the community. All right, I'm going to pass it over.
Great, thank you.
I dropped all my cards.
I think what we're talking here is education for global citizenship. And I know that there is an effort at the UN. Do we have any member states here? Because there is a movement to declare the International Day of Global Citizenship. So any of you who have a voice, please raise it so it will become reality. I'm here. I think many things that I have on my presentation you have heard today, so I'm going to do it a little bit quicker. I am here as a representative of an organization called Committee on Teaching about the UN. And it's sort of almost a reverse of what Jennifer's group does. We are trying to bring knowledge of the wonderful things, and maybe not so wonderful, the UN does, to the classroom, because most people, especially in the US, think the UN is this big building on the East River that maybe you have to stand in line to get in when you come on spring break. And then you read about things in the Security Council that don't always go how people do it. And people have no idea that is a tiny fraction of what the UN does and how it affects our everyday lives. So, and one way we try to have more people know is, of course, you go to teachers who then hopefully can use it in their classrooms. The way we do this is every year we have I need some help here, I think, to move that. Sorry.
Probably easier if you just hit the arrow.
Yeah, that's what I did. It doesn't want to do it. So, okay. So every year we have a major conference at the UN for 500, 600, 700 teachers and other educators, and now we have students. And it lasts all day, and every year we have a different topic and show on hand of this topic how the UN is involved. Now, the last conference we had was last week, and the topic was stepping up to protect our children. And I'm sure all of you know that there are many points besides UNICEF at the UN that do step up to protect our children. We had the Undersecretary Virginia Gamba, who is the representative for children on conflict. And so people learn what the UN does. Of course, one of the biggest things in my book